Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Ever since it was announced that Edgar Berlanga is going to be Canelo's next opponent, I've been hunting for someone who claims that he has a chance of winning, or a realistic chance of winning, let's say, because I've yet to find anyone who says, "Oh yeah, I think he'll win." And then when you push them on the question, they say, "Well," some of them say, "Well, I suppose he's a rank outsider. You never know. He's got a bit of power." But most people that I've spoken to, they just say he hasn't got a hope in hell of winning. And when you consider that he's 22 wins with 17 KOs, no draws, no defeats. He's 27 years old, 6'1", so he's a decent height for a super middleweight. Has shown power. I think his first 19 fights for first round KOs against very nondescript opposition. And he beat a couple of people who had half decent statistical records anyway. Cesar Nunes was 16-1-1. Berlanga did him in a round. Eric Moon was, I think, 11-2. He went out in a round. But then when he bumped into Demond Nicholson, he ended up going 8 rounds for the first time. And in actual fact, he then had a string of decision victories. Steve Rolls, that was a 10-round decision. Marcelo Caceres was a 10-round decision. I think there was a 12-rounder in there as well, wasn't there? Jason Quigley, that's right, because it was one of those, it was a WBO trinket thing. I don't know what the fuck it was. But, and he had about 5 or 6 decision victories in a row. And his last fight, he fought Pedrick McCrory and got McCrory out of there in 6 rounds. McCrory at the time was undefeated in 18, so that's a decent enough win. And, Jason Quigley, a 12-round decision. Well, if you look at Quigley's record, I mean, Quigley came in with 20 wins and 2 defeats. The 2 defeats were a 2-round knockout in 2021 to Demetrius Andrade, and then Tiriano Johnson took his unbeaten record in 9 rounds. And that was, I think, a 9-round retirement. And yet he goes the distance in 2023 with Berlanga. So that's, okay, that is what it is, I suppose. Steve Rolls we know about, 10-round decision. Rolls at the moment is 22 wins and 4 defeats. Lost his unbeaten record in 4 rounds to Gennady Golovkin. And since... Well, this is the interesting thing, because since the 10-round decision to Berlanga, the 10-round loss decision to Berlanga was his second defeat. And he now has 2 back-to-back defeats in his last 2 fights. This is Rolls I'm talking about. One was to Austin Williams over 10, but Stephen Butler over in Canada knocked him out in a round, which is a very bad result for Rolls. And Rolls is now 40. So, okay, I suppose it is, it's realistic that someone of that age is going to get... it's going to be at the back end of their career and may be susceptible to a 1-round knockout. But when he fought Berlanga, I mean, he was 38, and yet he took Berlanga 10 rounds. So if you actually analyse Berlanga's recent form, the form, since he's stopped with all these 1-round knockouts, we're talking 5, I think it was 5 decision victories in a row, and then that Pedrick McCrory 6-round TKO. If you actually break down the opponents and compare and contrast with other defeats that those opponents have suffered, it don't look good, does it? There's plenty to criticise there, or there's plenty to have doubts about. And again, but this is another example. Demond Nicholson, who was the first person to take Berlanga the distance. His last 2 fights, he lost a 10-round unanimous decision to Demetrius Andrade, and then Christian Mbele, who seems to be a very highly touted Canadian, currently unbeaten, he stopped him in 4 rounds. Again, you compare and contrast, and Berlanga is looking a little bit lacking. Perhaps his power is not what it was supposed to be or cracked up to be, those 19 first-round knockouts or whatever it was. Perhaps flattered to deceive. But against Canelo, what's Canelo now? 34. is it 61 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats. Very similar record to Marvin Hagler, actually. One of my favourite fighters at the moment, Alvarez. I think Marvin finished with, was it 62 wins, 3 defeats and 2 draws. The Leonard fight was his last fight. But anyway, I'm digressing. Alvarez is at that stage, kind of a similar stage that Hagler was, you know, mid-30s now, almost 70 fights, or 65 fights. Is he there for the taking? I don't think so. I mean, he lost to Bivol in 2022, midway through 2022, May, June, I think it was. Then he had that run around, that 12-round third fight with Gennady Golovkin. That kind of reminds me of the third Leonard Duran fight. I think Golovkin had a bit more left than Duran did in the third fight with Leonard, but it was two names coming together again for one last dance. But Golovkin was way past his best. In fact, that's probably been his last fight now. And then John Ryder took Canelo the distance, and Jamel Charlo took him the distance. Both Ryder and Charlo were on the floor, but you're talking about Ryder, you know, a very, very good European level fighter. Probably a world top 12, maybe top 15. Jamel Charlo, they've jumped up 2 weight divisions, hasn't fought since, lost a 12-round decision. Was down in round 7, but kind of hung around to try and survive afterwards. Wasn't very ambitious after getting floored, fought negatively. And then, of course, you got Jaime Munguia. I mean, again, statistically, you know, Charlo was 35-1-1 when he came into that fight. You know, Munguia was undefeated in 43 fights. And Munguia gave, even he was he was knocked over in the 4th round. It's a brilliant combination by Canelo. I actually think if you look at Canelo, they're talking about him being past his best, which may be true. But if you look at the Munguia fight, I think Munguia was a valid opponent. I know people, myself included, have said that Canelo should be fighting either David Benavidez or David Morrell. They've jumped to light heavyweight just to sort of carve out their own pathway, their own careers, rather than hang around waiting for Canelo, which is the right thing to do. If someone doesn't want to fight you, you move up, you do your thing. But I think the Munguia win is number one. It's against a good opponent because Munguia, I know he's not difficult to hit, but he was young, plenty of ambition. Did win a few rounds, won about 3 rounds, I think 4 rounds maybe. You know, he fought well. But Canelo showed a lot against, I think, a live opponent there. So I don't think he's that much over the summit, if you like. You know, you climb up to the summit and then you go down. I don't think he's halfway down. I think he's on his way down, but he's still got plenty left and almost certainly has too much for Edgar Berlanga. I'm finding it difficult to make a case for Berlanga winning. But, of course, if you're like me and you're certainly the age I am, you will remember Lloyd Hannigan beating Donald Curry in America. You will remember, of course, the absolute titan of all upsets, which was Douglas beating Tyson. The titan of upsets. It's true, isn't it? This one, I would never write a fighter off. I don't think Canelo gets old overnight. I don't think Berlanga has the one-punch power to really sting Canelo. He can get his attention, there's no question about that. But Canelo's got a fantastic jaw. I would probably make this fight an 80-20 in favour of Canelo. But what do you think? Give me a percentage. I'm saying 80-20. What do you think? 60-40? I doubt it. Most people I've spoken to are going 90-10, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't entirely write off Berlanga. I wouldn't entirely write him off, but I do see him as a rank outsider. I gave him a 1 in 5 chance, 80-20. Let me know your opinion, though, about Berlanga, about how you think he does against Canelo. Any comments you got, leave them down there. I'll have a read. And as always, please subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the like button. That helps us out a lot and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching the video. I'm looking forward to reading your comments, and bye for now.